Welcome back to Outdoor Education Club. Of course, it's really nice to harvest and to eat your own produce, but the next best thing after that is seeing your produce grow. And here are the carrots that we planted in week 1 that are coming along really nicely. There's some beetroot behind that. Some lettuce was also planted a couple of weeks ago, which is doing really well. We also have some tomatoes that have just been planted, and down here the beans are starting to climb up the canes there, and just behind that we also have some courgettes which will produce some lovely yellow courgettes. So lots and lots of growing is going on here. Of course, many plants start in the windowsill in pots, or indeed in pots outside like we have here, and many of these plants out here are going to go in very soon. We did plant some dwarf beans a couple of weeks ago, you may remember, and unfortunately the frost in early May destroyed them. So what we're going to have to do now is get some more planted. Persistence, of course, really pays off when it comes to any form of gardening, and fortunately I kept some seeds from before, and then we simply plant them in some compost, cover them up and give them a bit of a water. You can of course buy plants from a garden centre or from a DIY place, but it's more fun of course to grow them from seed yourself. And I'm going to go off to the allotment now and plant some of the plants that I grew from seed. Welcome back to the allotment. Now I'm going to plant some butternut squash, and I've grown this from seed. This is the butternut squash, but of course you can buy it from a garden centre, and probably if you're going to grow it now you've got to get a plant like that from a garden centre. And butternut squash uses a lot of space up, so in this whole section here I'm probably going to plant about 9 butternut squash or thereabouts, and I'm planting them in sequence so that they will ripen and mature at slightly different times, so I won't get an abundance of butternut squash all at one time. So really important thing to remember, to try and plant in sequence so you don't get too much all at the same time. One important thing is to remember that new plants are well and truly firmed into the soil, and I do this with my toe, being very careful not to damage the precious young plant. And then of course it needs, as always, a good bit of water. This is where the dwarf beans died in the early May frosts, and I'm getting 2 more rows of dwarf beans in here, and as the weeks go by I'll get many more rows in so that I don't get all my beans in at one time. So there's 2 more rows. Each of these will produce quite a lot of beans, so then get them watered of course. Strawberries have been growing really well, a bit like my hair during the lockdown, and you can see that these will be ripe fairly soon. We've already got some red ones, 1 or 2 red ones. In a few weeks time we should have an abundance of strawberries, and this of course is one of the best things about growing your own food. You can try it out. And there's nothing better than fresh produce. That's absolutely delicious. Sweet corn is also relatively easy to grow, and this has been grown from seed, and it's been going for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and just planted these sweet corn. There'll be a lot more in this bed as time goes on, and of course they'll grow fairly high, perhaps as high as me, and each one should produce 3 or 4 sweet corns, probably late August time. Something to look forward to. The potatoes are coming on really well with the good weather and plenty of watering by me of course. In fact, I can't even earth them up anymore because I've run out of soil to pile on top. And another recent addition, this greenhouse, except it's not made out of glass, and let's go and have a look inside. In the greenhouse we have some tomatoes along the side and at the back in tomato grow bags. We also have a couple of cucumbers which will grow pretty much to the top of the greenhouse, and just down here we have some aubergines which grow well in greenhouses and in grow bags as well. So greenhouses just give you that opportunity to make the crops grow a lot faster. So if you do have access to a greenhouse, it's well worth trying to use it. Okay, so the task for this week, I want you to find out a statistic of some description involved in the outdoors, in particular, gardening in particular, that's happened in the last few weeks or so since lockdown. There's been some pretty crazy things that people have been doing in terms of buying things they wouldn't normally buy, and I'd like you to find out how much money we're now spending on these sorts of things. So try and find a statistic to do with people gardening outside in the last few weeks.